how is it that 2020 we're still paying the same price as people in the 90s? In this video, we are going to talk about game prices. Well, you know this channel is all about talking about game prices, whether it's retro games, current games, comparing Gamestop to price charting, comparing anything and everything to price charting, and trying to figure out where is the best deal. And all that being said, it led me to this topic, and I wanted to talk to you guys about it because honestly, I think this is a very interesting topic that could be very polarizing. Now, I saw this article from Bloomberg, I'll link it down below, where they were saying games are going to go up from $60 to $70 when they're brand new. And I kind of thought about this, and I wanted to bring it to your attention to say, here's what I think about it. And I want to know your feedback, so comment down below and let me know. But I'm interested to see kind of where this can go. Now, games right now are $60 brand new, and that's usually the baseline. There's no like $30 games, $40 games, $60 games. They're all usually $60 unless they're like an indie title or a digital title, and that's completely different. But that led me to think about this. First off, I wanted to state that yes, games are released for cheaper than $60. Like someone recently was talking about the Nintendo 3DS being $40. I understand that that's a handheld console, and those are kind of gone away. Like, there's no handheld consoles on the market now. You can differ with me by saying the Switch Lite, but I think the Switch and the Switch Lite are still somewhat home consoles because you can get the Switch and play them at home. Yes, they're a hybrid, and the Switch Lite isn't even able to be docked, but for the most part, you're still paying the $60 for the Switch, so I'm including that as consoles and not comparing them like handhelds. Let's just keep it straightforward and not get into the semantics of those things, but usually when you buy a game brand new, not used or third party or anything like that, it's $60 whenever it first comes out. Sometimes they'll trickle down, not with a Nintendo obviously, but usually they're at $60, and that's what you pay for a game. And that's been that way for a very long time. Back in the 90s, that was 30 years ago. Well, 20 to 30 years ago, depending on where in the 90s it was, but that's crazy. Talk about something that is insane. The games have relatively stayed the same price. $60 back then is about comparable to about $100 now from all the inflation and all those numbers. I'm not getting exact, just say $100, but that's pretty crazy to think that gamers are paying 40% less than what they were in the 90s if you base it on inflation. So I kind of thought this was absolutely insane. How is it that 2020 we're still paying the same price as people in the 90s? That just blows my mind and made me think about this a little bit more. Why is it possible? How is it possible? I realize that this may be a little dark, but game companies tend to run their developers into the ground. I mean, constantly when games are about to come out, or even when they do release, people are working like 100-hour work weeks plus just to get these games released. So I want to say thank you to everyone who's developing games and spending a ton of time on these. Thank you very much. It's much appreciated. But let's go back to how much these things cost. They're $60 right now, but they should be going up to $70. It's not determined when, but it's gonna happen. But I thought about this. You gotta think of the difference between a game coming out on like the Nintendo 64 or the Nintendo Switch. Think about how much more work goes into a Switch game than the 64 games were. Now, yes, you could say, oh, some of those 64 games were big and some of them were really small, but like if you get a game in today's age, you're probably going to get about 20 to 100 hours of entertainment out of it. I say 20 to 100, that's a big number. However, most games that are $60 aren't going to be like 5 to 10 hour games. Usually they're a little longer, and then you get those games like on the way deep end, like Skyrim, that you could spend 300 or plus. There's games that are all over the place. So that is crazy to think that these long games that people are spending tons of hours playing, like 100 plus, are only $60. Like, to me, paying $70 for 100 hours of entertainment, that's well worth it. Like, can we all agree here? Comment down below and say we agree, like, if you understand that. But I'm interested to see how this affects those shorter games. Like, maybe a game that's only 20 hours, how is that going to be done compared to the 100-hour game? Because, you know, they're not going to take as long to make, and probably not going to be as good. And I say as good because it seems like the longer games, the games you put more time into, you're more invested in, and you tend to love those games more than the shorter ones. No offense, nothing about anything, just that's kind of how things work. And so whenever you see this game that's $70 and you go and you play it for 100 hours or more, and you play it and you love it, you absolutely understand how awesome and amazing it is, then you spend $70 and you get a game that's 12 hours long, you're like, and it's quite confusing because yes, someone spent 12 hours and is making as much as the 100-hour game, so it's hard to think of. But you've got marketing for both companies, both games, I guess you could say, the publishers, the developers. You've got companies like Walmart or Gamestop or Target taking their cut. You got a wholesaler. If you buy a Nintendo cartridge, you got to pay them a fee. It's just a lot of work. You got to get licensed on the systems. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of money. And so I'm okay with $70. Honestly, there are games on the Switch that if they came out for $70 and I didn't want it, I would just wait or get it used. Let's be honest. Now, price of games does fall when you get used games, and honestly, it's a Switch cartridge. They're not gonna get scratched like a disc from like the PlayStation era or the GameCube or something like that. So I'm okay with getting used games. But what does that do for us? I think this is well worth it, and I think this is something that both benefits the gamers and benefits the developers, because honestly, the developers, the people coding on these games, are the ones that need to be making the good money, but it just doesn't work out that way. You got the big marketing, you got to pay for the game to come out, you got to create a physical copy, all that stuff costs money. And yes, I know that money has to go places, but realistically, these things are crazy. How are we getting games that are 100 plus hours for $60? I don't know. And honestly, I think this $70 is probably not that big of a deal. I mean, we're spending, let's just talk about how the Xbox Series X and the PS5 just came out. Those are $500 consoles. We're playing on a game for 100 hours. $70 isn't that bad. Like, if it's a good game and it's well worth $70, I have no problem with it. Now, if you get a 5-hour game that really just sucks, maybe they should adjust the prices. But honestly, I don't mind this. If the game is good enough and it's definitely well worth it, I definitely don't mind the inflation. It's got to happen. Everything else around us goes up. Housing goes up. Shelter, housing, I guess. Food goes up. I mean, like, having a car goes, all this stuff, the prices are jacked up. They go up every year, insurance, stuff like that. All this stuff goes up. So why are we shocked whenever games are going up $10? Like, it should happen. I mean, am I wrong? Comment down below and let me know. I want to say thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell notification. That way you know when I post more videos, which is every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And one more time, thank you so much for watching. If you've watched this far, I want to know what you think. Comment down below and say $50 is good for a 20-hour game, but $70 for a $20-hour game just isn't well worth it. I want to know your thoughts, so go ahead, comment down below. One more time, thank you so much for watching, and make sure you have a good day.